Excellent. Well, speaker view and let's see, no speaker view. And let's hide you guys there. So, welcome to this module 2, the second module. And after seeing kind of the basic concepts and the basic ideas in module 1, now in this module, what I'd like to begin to look into is more the kind of application of this knowledge, okay? And the application of kind of like that question of beginning a process, starting a process with this knowledge, and not just kind of having an understanding, but also beginning, we could say a more kind of practical implication, involvement, if you want. So, for that reason, I'm just going to put this a bit lower. I think there. So for that reason, they're basically in the application side of this. There are mainly 2 areas of application, or 2 sides of this application. Okay, which this is again kind of like just giving the feel of that application, which with the progression of the modules, we will kind of go deeper into that that understanding, of course. But it's just to give the main kind of frameworks. I'm hearing a lot of cars, so I'm just gonna close the door. Hello, Nienke.
Hi.
Welcome. Okay, so Nienke is also. So you were able to make it from Switzerland, yeah?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, so okay, let's continue. So the main 2 areas of the application are what we call the Knight process, or we call the Knight derivation. I'll explain why we use that word. The Knight process and the day process, the daily derivation. And these are talking about 2 different configurations, 2 different realignments of the 2 sides which compose us. So if you remember, the other day I was explaining that there is that reality is kind of made out of these 2 principles, or 2 aspects, or 2 qualities, which has got this more kind of abstract, invisible, or concrete, more manifested, more visible. And one way of calling them, one way of calling these principles or these qualities is the more abstract, we could call it the more negative, and the concrete, we call it more positive, okay? Now, if somebody's got the mic open, I'm not sure who it is. I'm gonna mute there.
Sorry.
There. No problem. Let's get me here speaking. Let's see. Wait, something's happened. What happened? I've got like Nienke's. Oh, there. Excellent. Okay, so we have that more negative side and then more positive side, like a more visible and a more invisible, manifested, non-manifested. Now, the relationship between them is that the negative is what configures what's going to be expressed in the positive. And I'm not sure if I explained the other time, but always the best analogy for this is like the computer programming. I think is probably one of the best analogies. It's that when you're using a computer program, okay, you're using the positive side. You're using that which is manifested. So, for example, we're using this program called Zoom, and we can see that there are little drawings of icons, options, images, colors, yeah, and it's all destined for the user, okay, for the person who wants to use and experience that program. That's what the positive is used for. The positive is for the experiencer, the user of that program. But really, where this program has been created or generated, where it has been a kind of configured, we could say, is in another area which is invisible. Do not hear it anymore. Anyone else? Can you guys hear me? Write on the chat, because I can't see you guys now. If anybody can't hear me, just let me know. So if you can hear me, just put a yes in the chat, so I can. Okay, you can hear me. So it has to do with your audio, Gabi. Something with the audio. Just try and check it. Okay, everyone can hear me. Yeah, so so we have, but when we want to see like where that program was created, we have to go to an area which is invisible to the program that we're using. Yeah, it's invisible, but it is generated in another area, in what we call a negative area, and that's the area where the programmer has programmed, has configured the positive manifested program. Okay, so the thing of this negative is that the language it uses, programming, coding, is like it has a series of, it's got a coherency, but it's kind of like an abstract coherency. So there's no colors, there's no pictures, there's no options. It is just it's like ones and zeros and a kind of, it's not exactly only ones and zeros, and it's got a kind of a language in it, okay, in the negative. But when we're using the program, we don't see that, okay? But that is crucial to the configuration of the program that we are using, okay? Meaning that the negative, the non-manifested, the invisible, is the configuration of what's going to be expressed on the positive, the visible, and the manifested, okay? So the ninth derivation, it's more about, it has an emphasis in attending the negative aspect of ourselves, because we are made out of both principles. So we have the user experience during the day, the more positive expression, but also we are made out of that negative, that kind of non-manifested aspect of it. So kind of like in us coexist the programmer and the user. The user is more the experiencer. The programmer is that which configurates it, right? So the ninth derivation, the ninth process, it's more about attending how that negative is going to reconfigure itself, okay? And the daily process, or the daily derivation, it's more about how we are going to be using and experiencing that which has been set during the ninth derivation in the negative. Now, although it is true that the negative configures it and the positive experiences it, so it's kind of like it's an after process, the positive. That doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's not like the relationship between this negative and positive. It's not a superior and an inferior relationship. It just has different qualities, it's different areas or levels of ourselves, of reality in itself, okay? Another way of seeing it, another good example of it that we could use, which are just examples, yeah? So not when it's an example, we can't push it too far either, because the program analogy is just a computer program analogy, is just an analogy. But another one is like this concept of the matrix. You see this concept of the matrix where they are experiencing something in the matrix, but really that is just a computer coding, okay? Well, that is actually kind of similar to what is happening in a way, okay? Don't push it too far, okay? Like it's just a film and it's just a good analogy, yeah? But it does give us a good idea to understand these two levels, yeah, of configuration. And if the program coding of the matrix changed, the expression changed, didn't it? Yeah. So a lot of times we have to see that each area has kind of its domain. It has its own reach. It has its own, like there are certain things in the positive that we can't do because it's the negative's domain and the other way around. And we have to differentiate them, both of them, yeah? Which are the expertise aspects of each side. And this is another thing that's important. They are interrelated and they have to be in communication. The positive and the negative have to be in a communication between each other. So the programmer configures the program and he creates the program for the user to use it, yeah, to use that program. The thing is that there are a lot of things that the programmer, while he was doing it, he didn't realize or he didn't think about. And it's only when the user, the person who's using the program, begins to give feedback to the programmer, like, okay, this is good, but this is not working that well. Like, this idea is quite good. This is a bit more complicated, you know, like I would change this and I would change that. So meaning that the user of the program, when it gives feedback of the, we could say, limitations, errors, or dysfunctions, or things that are not working too well in the program, then the programmer can take that, can receive that feedback and change the negative, change the coding and bring back a different expression, a different manifestation of the program, you see? So the negative needs the feedback of the positive. We could also say this way, the programmer needs the feedback of the user of the program in order to refine it, improve it, etc., etc., etc. But the user can't change the coding because it is like using the program, the positive can't change the coding. And that's where a lot of people get frustrated. They're trying to change the negative, but within the logic and the domain of the positive. And they get frustrated because they don't know how, and this is the point, they don't know how to do the derivation, because there are aspects of the positive that we can't just change in the positive. Like an example of this is there are things of us, there are limitations of us that we can't transform only with willpower, okay? Like willpower is something that belongs to the positive domain, you know, the will to go downstairs, to do exercise, okay? And that will has a reach, it has a certain reach, but there are limits that it can't go beyond. And a lot of people want to do everything just with their willpower. And that's where they get frustrated, because there are certain aspects that instead of will, it's the other way around. It's more a surrender that's going to help them reconfigure that aspect of themselves. Yeah. So if that is kind of understood, so meaning that what we're doing during the day is experiencing that configuration in the negative, okay? And when experiencing it, we are informing the things that are not working to the negative. Yeah. So the negative can reconfigure it. And the things that are not working, we could say in a way that it is an error, it is a distortion, but my favorite word is it's just something that has become out of date. It's something that is out of date. It's something that was configured and it worked for a certain period of time, but it's not working anymore. So we have to, from the positive, when we're experiencing, we have to inform that some things are not are out of date. Okay. Taking the drawing I gave you in the first module, the stencil, this is going to give us a good image for me to explain this relationship between the negative and the positive. Okay, because this is the two areas that we're going to be applying. So we are going to have to take these two areas into consideration. Yeah? So let's go with the drawing. And as usual, I'll be let's see if you can see all right. There, maybe down. There. So remember, you guys, we had this x-axis. This x-axis was this aspect of ourselves that has more, it's more like it's got this time development, yeah? This development in time. That's why it is a linear process and it's a sequence. So it has a past, a present, a future. And this x-axis, which we could say that it's more our, that time aspect of ourselves, which if we put it in reference to consciousness, we could say it's our state of consciousness. Our state of consciousness is how these three times or flows of time are having a dialogue with itself. Like future had that more purpose, potential view. past had that more existence view. So the states of consciousness, a way of defining states of consciousness is how much purpose we can conceive and see into existence in our present. Yeah. So how many levels of purpose can we see? And then we had this y-axis. And this y-axis, which was connected with the 0 point, is it has more to do, it's more related with our timeless consciousness or timeless aspect of who we are, okay? Sometimes I call it the stateless consciousness, because it's not really a state, because a state is something that is always changing, isn't it? Like the state of water, it's always changing. It's liquid now, but if it's very hot, it becomes more gas, and if it's cold, it goes into ice, and so a state is always changing, transforming. But the y-axis is more like it's kind of like a timeless ground that gives us this kind of stability here for this flow, this dynamic time to move. Yeah. So the purpose of waking up to our timeless aspect, to be able to evolve our time aspect, yeah, evolve our state of consciousness, evolve reality. And we could say, and then we had this, well, biological, physical, more concrete, slow frequency plane or dimension, which was just kind of like a vehicle for this essence, this source, we could call nothingness. Remember that any concept we're giving it is just the concept. Like, we can't really define it, but we use words. I say use words where we fail like in the best way, okay? So words that come close to that, yeah? But that origin, that source, that essence has a quality which is absolute, which is not limited, which is not defined, which is not like it hasn't got a separation. So we use words like emptiness. We try to use technical words, not kind of words that have a charge in them because of our associative memory. So, you know, emptiness is a pretty clear word. Probably we can get confused saying that, okay, if it's emptiness, it's the opposite of fullness. Well, you have to just be aware that it has no opposite. So we could say it's emptiness, but it's the fullest thing there is. That's probably the most correct. It's nothingness, but at the same time, it's everythingness. So it has this, it's absolute, and it has this unification of opposites, okay? Because it's absolute. So whenever you define it on one side, you have to include the other. So if it's nothing, it's everything. If it's empty, it's full. It's, okay, good. And in the middle, between this which has no separation and this which is an entity, a separate body, a separate individuality, we have a middle point, which is this design. Okay? And this is a way of expressing these three qualities of the unfoldment. Very, very important. This is going to be always in the background, these three qualities. This particular quality, okay? A particular, it's like a part, it's a little part, it's the individuality, an individual physical entity. And we're going to have this, we could call it the relative, okay? So it is that identity that gives this like a limitation, a body, an individuality. Okay, and then we have this third character, which has a more absolute quality, an absolute quality. Okay, and these three characters, which here are expressed in 7, 4, and 1, are going to express these three levels of what reality is made out of. Okay, so we could say, in a way of speaking, that the y-axis is attending more the timeless or the negative aspect. This is the configuration of the programming, if you want. Okay, it's taking the example of the manifested program and the generated program. So one thing is where the programmer is programming Zoom, and one area is where we are using Zoom. Okay, so the programming of it, the negative configuration would be let's just say the y-axis. So this gives us a kind of clue that the negative is configured in the timeless aspect. The negative is configured in the timeless aspect, in this y-axis. Okay. But the user aspect of the program, the experience, the positive, is something that is going to unfold in the timeless aspect. Okay? So this is setting the possibilities of the non-linear, and this is opening the possibilities of the non-linear. Yeah? Another example for this is just imagine that you want to download a movie, okay? So your computer hasn't got that movie and you want to download it. You download it from where? From the internet. The internet is this, let's say, it's not exactly true, but it's this cloud of abstract information which all the computers are connected to. All the computers that are open to that connection. The download of the movie occurs in this y-axis. It's like a download, okay? But when you want to, once the computer has downloaded that file of the movie and you want to watch it, what do you have to do? You have to open the movie and you have to watch it in a sequence. You're going to watch the movie in a process. When you're downloading it, you're not downloading it in a process, you're downloading the whole kind of packet, like in a non-linear download. And you see what I mean? But when you want to watch it, you're not starting by the middle, you're not starting by the end. When you want to watch the movie, it has a sequence, it has a process. Well, the ninth derivation is like the download. The daily derivation is like watching the movie that you have downloaded. Okay? This is it's still just an explanation, but I'm trying to attempt the best explanation possible because the only way that you're really going to get this is when you begin to do this. When you begin to take this into consideration and start applying it and living it in your, expressing it in your own life, which is going to take time, okay? So here we are explaining, let's say, the recipe, if you want. It's not a recipe, but it's another analogy. But you don't really get it like the recipe of spaghetti bolognese, okay? But you don't really know how it is until you cook the spaghetti bolognese and you begin the process of discovering, you know, like there's things that you have to go through them. It's not only an explanation process, okay? So there are two processes, the ninth download, if you want, and the day opening of the file, opening of that file and going through and living that file, okay? Does that mean that during the day, there's no nonlinear connection? Yes, there is. We are always having the two connections. The only thing is that during the day, the emphasis is more on the x-axis. During the night, the emphasis is on the y-axis. But during the night, we also have x-axis. That's why we, in occasions, we dream. In the dreaming, there's an x-axis occurring there. There's like a movement, a story, which has a different fluidity and et cetera, but so probably when we're in very deep sleep, you know, like that deep sleep, that is where the configuration in the negative is the deepest. Yeah, because there's very little kind of x-axis going on there. It's very much this is going on. You're very much connected on a timeless or a non-temporal configuration. Okay. So I think that the best thing is to start with the night derivation and then go with the daily derivation. Okay. What also is important is that this y-axis, we could say that it's configuring the, I say the what. Alejandro says the what. The what means what's going to happen. Like, what is the story? What is being downloaded? Okay. Meaning that it's more focused on purpose, like what for. And this is, and the x-axis is more about how is that what's going to unfold. What we tend to ask when we're talking about an application, a lot of times we tend to ask more about how to do it than what for. Like, what am I doing? What for? So let me put an example. Yeah. So just imagine you don't know, you come from a different planet or a different time, and you see me with a telephone. Okay, you see me with a telephone, and you're curious, and you ask me, "What is that?" It's a telephone, and you ask me, "How can I use it?" Okay, so you're just interested in how. So I explain. Look. What you do is you press these numbers, which connects with another telephone, and you talk with that person. And you say, oh, excellent, so I'm going to do it. So you already know the how, and you suddenly dial a number, and you start talking with somebody, but you don't know what for. You see what I mean? Like, the how to do something isn't the important question. The first important question is what for. So, like, what do I want to explore? And then after, the how kind of unfolds itself. So there's kind of like a bit of a, we could say, a law. And it's like the how question is going to emerge by itself. You don't have to really ask that question. You have to be clear about what. So, and what why? I just realized that, like in English, the why would also be there. So it's like why and what do you want to establish this communication with 7? Like, what for? What is the purpose? What is the purpose of beginning this process? What is the process of doing this? Like, what for? And you see, that is very important, because if I say, because once you're clear on what, the how is a lot easier to see. Like, what, first I have to know what I want to cook, and then I see how I can cook it. Okay, so what for? What and why is this movement of this derivation, of this connection with source, with the essence? So that's a question that kind of you have to inner ask yourself, like, what is the point of all this? What is the point of being alive? And why am I opening myself to this download here? And what is the purpose of that derivation? So a lot of people like, how do I do the 9 derivation? The question is not the correct question. Like, you have to be sure about why and what for. What for are you entering into this process of communication with your particular aspect and the absolute? What for? What's the story? So there you have to begin to become honest with yourself and see what for. Is it to, for example, are you doing this derivation to be healthier and richer? And so you're establishing this communication with the negative for what purpose? You understand? Is it to be more, I'm a germ, in your idea of being more powerful? Or, you see what I mean? Like, for example, if we take this movie, The Secret, remember that movie, The Secret? And The Secret kind of has this, in a very, in my opinion, immature way, but it has got this dialogue with the negative. It understands that you can't do everything with a positive. You have to know that there's this other area which is configuring the positive. Now, in the book, The Secret, which I guess you guys know, the thing is that what is the purpose of that connectivity that they establish, and what they call the law of attraction? It is to fulfill your dreams. It is to basically have the job that you want, the car that you want, the woman that you want, you know. So it has that focus of having a better experience. That is the derivation. Now, the thing is, one thing is what you want and your identity wants, and one thing is what the source wants through you. Okay, so already we have in this derivation, we have like these two options in a way. Okay, which is this all about what I want as David, as an identity? Or is it more about what does emptiness, or the source, or, you know, or this absolute want to explore through David? You see that the question is very different. The what and the why is very different. What for is very different. Because depending on, you know, how you orient the purpose of the derivation is how this is going to be explored. You see what I mean? So probably the first thing with the 9 derivation is to be clear for what for. What is the, like, what am I opening myself to? What am I downloading from this internet? Okay? So is it more to satisfy the desires and needs of David? Yeah? Or is it more about some sort of availability of David in a kind of like vehicle, understanding that it's this vehicle to explore an intention or a purpose, 9, okay, of this absolute. And what for? Like, why does it have to? Why does it want to do this exploration? And this is where each person. This is. I'm not giving you an answer here, really. Yeah? I'm actually just giving you like a view of the options in a way. Each person has to see and decide for themselves what is the intention, what is the purpose of this communication, because this is what it is. It's a communication. The daily and the night process is a communication. It's a process of communication. So the one thing is knowing how to communicate, and another thing is knowing what. Why do I want to call? You know, I know how to call my mother. I know the how, but what for? What do I want to tell her? And a lot of people are interested in the how. You know, how do I do it? Because they're interested in like gaining a new trick. But the thing is like, what for? Again, okay? This, I'm putting a lot of emphasis because this is quite a crucial point. And if I had to share from my perspective in this day, in this point in my process, like the what for of the derivation is an availability to expand the consciousness, to evolve this state of consciousness of David, of course, but also of David belonging to this organism called Earth, because I can't, we'll see that later on, but we can't separate our individual aspect to the organism which contains us. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I can't really say, you know, expand the consciousness of David without taking into consideration the Earth. It's like, it just doesn't work. You know, like the cells in my body are synchronized with the global intention of my whole organism. Okay. We're not going to be looking too much into that, but that is an important aspect. So, and then the Earth belonging to the solar system. Okay. And that solar system is a unit. It is a, you know, it is a, it's like, and it's even got like a cell structure in a way. So for me, it's like the most, the best answer you're going to find is the one that you feel has the greatest coherency for you. Yeah. Not always the greatest enthusiasm, but it has the greatest coherency. And for me, up to this point, that availability, that what for I'm establishing this communication is to open myself as a vehicle for this expansion of the states of consciousness, for this evolution process of life. And we could say it in a way, of life, specifically of David, because that's another beautiful thing of the unfoldment, is that each unit has a self-referential free choice of communication with the same source. So we are all linked and communicated with the same source, but each individual has to discover, has this like free will aspect to discover the what for it establishes that communication. Well, the first thing is to discover that we are in communication, that not a lot of people really know that. You know, they actually feel like they are this individual entity which is kind of like isolated with the absolute configuration of the universe. There's a lot of people that are in that modus operandi, okay? But here, of course, in this in this perspective that we are taking, this universal perspective, we're not looking at it that way. No, I'm a consequence of the universe. I'm not like this isolated thing. I'm a consequence, meaning that the universe has expressed it, the whole universe has expressed itself through this individual entity, this one. Yeah. So that's, I guess it is an open question, really. The what for? Why do you establish this derivation? Why do you establish this availability? Yeah. And each person has to kind of just work out which is the most coherent answer or coherent way of establishing that what for. You got it? I do tell you is that kind of like what has to be mentioned is that when it's kind of like there has to be this kind of balance. When you're saying what you want, okay, from one, you're saying, okay, this is my desire, this is what I want. You have, and you get it, okay, you get what you want. What you're going to realize is that there's like this double side to the coin of desire. Okay, desire and dissatisfaction are two sides of the same kind of coin. Yeah. So that's something that you have to realize. Like the secret that the secret didn't tell you, okay, and this has to be mentioned. The secret that the secret doesn't tell you is that really the satisfaction of your desires brings on its own, the satisfaction of your desires brings a moment of pleasure, and it brings together with it dissatisfaction. I guess this is like probably the universe saying that there is some sort of limit to just being here to satisfy your desires. Because it always happens. Whenever a person satisfies what they wanted, what their desires, what happens is this dissatisfaction. You know? So that I think it's kind of like telling one that it's not all about what you want. Okay, and I'm gonna let you know. Yeah, because whenever there is like something that is not totally aligned with the intention of 7, you're going to notice it where? In your body, in your biology. You're going to sense it in your biology. Okay? When this is not aligned with this, we're going to notice that difference of potential in our body. This is not a punishment. This is not a punishment. It's not like the whole story of karma and punishment and the whole story of, that is just a very out of date explanation, which I wouldn't even touch. I wouldn't go there. It's just about the only way of knowing what I require is when I am experiencing that which I don't require. You see what I mean? Like, the only way of learning what is best for me to eat is when I have indigestion with things that I don't, which is not very good for me to eat at this point. So it's not a punishment. It's not like bad boy attitude, like this God figure trying to tell you bad. No. It is you discovering your own coherency through incoherency. Okay, so there are consequences to errors, but there's no punishment. Like put that as a phrase in your bedroom, There are consequences, but there's no punishment. The consequences are just a mechanism of growth. Okay, Nienke, bye-bye. Enjoy Switzerland, and you'll have the recording, okay? Take care. So there are consequences of errors, but it's not a punishment. It is a mechanism of growth. It's like it's like the baby learning, the child learning the limits because it gets hurt. It's not like a punishment of reality. It is it's a communication. It's like reality saying, look, fire is not the best thing for you to touch at this moment. You know, so it's a learning process. So it's like, but there has to be something that makes me aware of this, of me not recognizing certain you know, like incoherencies. There has to be something that gives me like this warning. Okay, and the biology, the good thing of the biological plane, it contains the other plane. So where you're going to see it most clear, that equation that is not totally aligned is in your body. It's in your body. And when this gets a bit too, like, it gets into a, you know, if you're not listening to that incoherency and to the consequences of that incoherency, then things have to get a bit more drastic. And that's where, you know, it's just imagine like you touch something that is hot and you go, oh, that's hot. But you keep touching it. So you're not kind of integrating the understanding. So you're still touching it. So you get burnt and more burnt and more burnt until a point where you start having serious, you know, like blisters and stuff like that, because you are not listening to the equation. So it's better to listen, it's better to see the era and the experience of an era as reality giving you feedback of where the equation isn't equal. So the whole story of, you know, a punishment for being a bad boy, that belonged to another stage of growth of the humanity, which is not necessary today at all. It's not necessary today at all. It's like the way that you establish a limit with a child or with an adult requires different parameters. With a child, okay, iPad raised her hand. Okay, you come into the conversation, Susan.
Yeah, you just said about not listening to the incoherency we're experiencing.
Yeah.
There's also the part of not necessarily understanding what that incoherency is.
Yeah, yeah.
What I wanted to point out there. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's important what you're saying, because that has to do with because the first level you're going to notice that incoherency in your body is at the emotional level in plane 2. That's why the best way of describing plane 2 in your experience is a sensor. It's a sensor. Plane 2 is a sensor of logic, of fine. So it's not plane 2 being the emotional plane or the plane of chemistry, of movement. We normally use it as, you know, we use it in a more of a drug pleasure aspect. Like we use plane 2 like to give us pleasure, which the consequence is pain. But really plane 2 is something that we have to censor the incoherency. The thing is that plane 2, the first plane we're going to get is 2. But then after sensing, then we start realizing in plane 3, we start realizing, okay, that's because of that, and that's because of that. So a lot of times the first thing the baby's going to notice is, that hurts. Chemistry saying it hurts. And then the mind is going to create a learning process saying, okay, fire has a higher temperature and it's too high for my skin to, okay. So then you start understanding that which you sense. So a lot of time what happens, Susan, is first you sense the limit, then you understand it. Yeah? A lot of times it happens that you are feeling the incoherency and you have no idea why. Because that's just basically, so the first thing is just to sense it, and then you start revealing it in your mind. Okay? But it's a very good question, very important question. Okay. So, so the first thing of the ninth derivation is to be clear what for and what is the purpose of establishing this communication with 7. Okay. Having this idea of, you know, at the end of the day is what is the purpose for me living? That's, you know. And if you do not know, there you've got what you could derivate. I don't know. One saying I don't know. Actually, the derivation is kind of a I don't know. It's just an availability. Now, this is where the information of Alejandra and the information of Garnier, because the whole derivation process, the whole application of the derivation comes from this quantum physicist called Garnier. But there's a very big difference, because the what for that Garnier shares, it's more about I have this, you know, problem and I want you to give me the solution. Okay. In the more the perspective of Alejandra or of the logic, it's not about I have this problem. It's more about I'm opening to you. It's not about demanding in a way. It's not about demanding. It's about opening. Okay, so it's more about availability, because this is one thing that why does one become available? Because it realizes that its reach of understanding is limited. So it's seeing that the highest perspective is not 1, the widest perspective is 7. Yeah, the widest perspective comes from 7. So instead of demanding from my limited perspective, I am becoming available from a wider perspective. Now this is important. 7 is something that coexists inside each plane 1, each vehicle. So you're not asking some external entity or whatever. You're not asking another 4 out there, you know, because you see there are some truths, and you know that a lot of people ask like virgins or saints or certain entities like for certain help, you know, they ask for, and they go to bed. So they go to bed with that asking. The thing is that normally they are asking towards something that is not themselves. In the intention of the asking, they're asking some sort of external identity or entity. And that is where you are not doing a self-referential, legitimate derivation. That is still a derivation that a child will be doing, you know. It's like still very much looking for a father-mother figure instead of trying to discover on its own. Okay, and the problem is when you like derivate to this other area of another identity, you don't know what the other person's agenda is. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing happens with politics. Like you want the politician to solve your problems. The politician says, "Yeah, I'll solve your problems," but you have to vote for me, or but you have to, or so and so, yeah? So the thing is that with this legitimate connectivity with that source within you, it's a dialogue with yourself. That's important. It's a dialogue, it's a self-referential dialogue with yourself. When you go to bed, You're closing your eyes because you're going within another level area within yourself. Okay? So, this, let's put it with like colors. We could say that before going to bed, yeah, in plane 1, in the present, you're doing this derivation. This would be like the area, a way of saying not derivation. Availability. And why do I put it on the left and why do I establish it in 4? Okay? Why? First on the left, because I'm derivating kind of like, because what I know about myself comes from the past. Okay? But growth and evolution comes from that which I don't know about myself. Okay? So what you're kind of doing in a way is you're derivating your certainties. What you are derivating all that which makes up what you think you know and what you think you are as David and so on. So the design or the identity that's configuring your individual aspect. Okay? So you are connecting with an area that goes beyond your design. It goes beyond, so you're kind of saying, okay, well, up to this point, it's kind of like this, okay? Up to this point, this is more or less what I understand about myself, about the world, about who I am, about what this is all about, okay? And that comes from the past. And I know that that limit comes from my identity, from my design, from, yeah? But when you're falling asleep at night, the communication you're establishing is with something that goes beyond your identity. Okay? So that's why it is something that is transcending, it's a communication beyond your identity. Okay? Again, it's another area of yourself, like the Russian dolls. Okay? So that is this is kind of like the conscious decision before going to bed. And a lot of people here ask, how do I do it? There, you see, just understand what I'm explaining. You find your own way. Find your own way, what feels more real, genuine, comfortable. Be clear of what you're doing. Be clear of what you're doing. But the how is something that there is no kind of like recipe, how do the, like, you know, the whole, when I say like you are going to ask something to some entity to bring you good luck. Yeah? Hello, Alice. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. Alice, if you could please silence your microphone.
Yes.
Excellent. So, where was I? I was saying, so the how. Okay, now a lot of people find this a bit frustrating because it's like they want the how. And look, there is no how to establish a dialogue with yourself. It's like there's no how. But there is a process of learning how. But it's kind of like you're gonna learn that on your own. And what I do tend to say is that when it feels most natural and most genuine, is that you're on the right track. Okay, that is like the symptom. It feels genuine. It feels, maybe at the beginning it feels a bit strange because you've never really had that way of going to sleep. Maybe a lot of nights you even forget. No problem. What you do have to is just gain the most natural way of kind of doing this derivation. Okay? Now, this is occurring more on the conscious level. Now, what's going to begin to happen when you kind of fall asleep with that inner decision? okay? What's going to begin to happen is, when you're derivating this past, if you want, okay, and what you're doing is and what are we doing at night? We are reconfiguring the negative aspect, okay? We are reconfiguring the negative aspect. This is what I call, we have two levels of the 0 point. We have a 0 point, which is a negative 0 point, and we have a 0 point, which is the positive 0 point. Because between the x-axis and the y-axis and the z-axis, but let's not think about that one now because it's going to bring too much complexity. So the membrane which communicates them is the 0. The 0 is like the membrane between like a cell. It's a 0, yeah, it's like something outside, something inside. It's like a membrane, the 0, it's like a membrane. And also, it is like the membrane between the membrane which connects and dialogues the negative with the positive. Okay, so we have a negative 0, meaning it is that 0 which I'm becoming available to the negative configuration. And the positive is the 0 which is involved in the manifested. But it's still in a 0, it's still in a 0 position. But it's more in the manifested. It's more attending the manifested. The negative 0 is attending or being available to the negative aspect. Okay. So more for the 0 one for the understanding for now is more the dialogue with the y-axis, and the positive 0 is more attending the dialogue with the positive. Okay. So I'm derivating this past with a purpose. Now this is the thing. When I'm derivating, asking for something, asking the essence for something. So I'm saying I want this. I want the perfect couple. Okay. So you have you're asking for something. You have what's it called? You're asking for something, basically. There, it's like you are it's not a pure 0 here. It's like it has a charge. It's not a complete availability. It has a charge to it. You see? So if it has a charge, like I want this, so there's a charge to it. It's not like a clear 0, meaning that charge is not going to have, it's going to affect when this communication comes up here. Okay? So, what's the next thing that's going to occur? Okay, then this is going to occur beyond, because your will aspect is the decision. The derivation is the same thing of saying conscious decision of availability. Now, this area here, you can see it's the future, but it's the future which is in this area. Okay, I'll explain you now, Miriam, the thing with the charge, okay? Let me complete so this is like the abstract configuring the concrete, okay? So this is seeing this, it reconfigures a future. So this, well, sorry, it doesn't reconfigure really. Really, this is like it activates a new possibility. You see it's on the future side, but it's on the abstract level of the future, not on the concrete. It's in the, not the abstract, sorry, in the impersonal. First, it is configured in the impersonal, and then it's lived in the personal. Okay. So this is an activation occurs. This you don't really follow it consciously. This is more like, okay, the decision of doing the download of something, and this is the activation of the download. But when it activates the download, it activates it in synchronicity with internet. It's like you don't really control that, you know? It's just kind of, it's more not voluntary, but it is a consequence of your decision. You getting it? So here it activates a future possibility. Yeah? Why? Because you are letting go of that past. You letting go of what you know. Okay? You letting go. So it's an activation. And when it activates a future, it's going to reconfigure. This is like a reordering, reconfiguration of the past, but of the impersonal past. Okay, so it's going to begin to reconfigure that. And what's going to happen? It is going to download. It's going to, we could say, update or download a new possibility. Call this one download or update. Okay? But all this is happening in the reordering of the negative. This is only happening in the configuration of the programming. Okay? Now, this is the ninth process. When we wake up, what happens? What's going to happen when we wake up? This which has been downloaded and the reconfiguration and the download, this is something we are going to experience during the day. So that is opening that thing that is being downloaded. Okay? Now, the download of the new possibility is in relationship with the what for of your decision. Like what was the purpose of establishing this communication? So if your purpose was more aligned with something like to become available in order to collaborate in the expansion of consciousness of life, of me, of my life, and of the life of the universe or of Earth or whatever, this download is going to be aligned with that decision. Okay. And it's going to give you the experience that is needed for that decision to start occurring. Okay. So it's kind of like the dialogue. It's kind of like you have the lamp and you're rubbing it, okay? But here, instead of telling the genie what you want, you see that everything that you ask Aladdin, it comes with like like some consequence you didn't calculate, because really the direction was you asked the desire instead of saying, give me what is required for this purpose. You see? It's like, no, I want this, but then it has a consequence to that, you know? Well, again, each of you guys have to realize within why are you alive? Like, what's for? What's the reason of being alive? Another thing is that, does that mean that if I'm opening to a purpose of availability, of increasing the evolution of the consciousnthis of life, meaning increasing its level of coherency, complexity, autonomy, okay, this direction of evolution? Does that mean that we can't enjoy things? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It's not that kind of way of seeing it. It means that it's like, because what people consciously or unconsciously do is that the only thing I want is to live with pleasure. So that pleasure becomes the limit of what they want to explore in their lives. Here we're saying that pleasure is not the limit. So meaning that if I have to download an experience that maybe isn't pleasant, but definitely it is in service to the expansion of consciousness, me included, I want that experience. A person who's only searching for pleasure, they're going to say they don't want that experience. They don't want that uncomfortable experience because what they want is pleasures. Now, pleasure comes with a price. Just living with pleasures comes, if that is your limit, it comes with a price, because it seems like reality tells us this is not just about pleasures. The whole thing is not just about pleasures. And if it was about pleasures, why is it that people who are able to satisfy all the pleasures they want, being famous and rich, tend to self-destroy themselves or degrade themselves? Why is life kind of giving us that hint? Because it's telling us this is not only about satisfying your pleasures. It's not about being a masochist. You know, a masochist, like hurting. It's not about that either. But it is definitely that challenges are part of growth. This is about growing. That what I seem to detect that life is trying to do is not just to have fun. Life is trying to grow. And grow means it has to go through challenges, uncomfortable points of growth. And when you're making the decision of growing the state of consciousness of life through you, and you as a participant in it, you are downloading things that are saying, I want challenges. And you're going to open challenges. Yeah. The thing is that really you can't really hide away from challenges. Not for a long time. Yeah? So this is the ninth derivation. The ninth derivation is a communication you establish with yourself before going to bed. It's a conscious communication you establish with yourself. And there is no kind of like, see, it's like you kind of just close your eyes and you have a dialogue, the most intimate dialogue you can have, because you are, at that point, you're silencing all the external relationships and you're going into the most private relationship, which is before you go to bed. It's the most intimate relationship with yourself. Because during the day, you do have that dialogue, but you're having external dialogues. When you go into bed, not so much. Okay, so you're just finding that decision of derivation of communication with this other level of yourself, with this absolute level with yourself, with this area of source within you, within each thing. And it's a no thing. This is the paradox, yeah? It's a no thing within each thing, okay? And this is what you're doing. You're doing the decision, you're opening up. This is also, you can say it's an opening, it's a availability. That is establishing an activation of a new potential, of a new future. For something new to activate is reconfiguring the past, and that is going to download, update into your biological kind of system, okay? But this is all a configuration in the timeless. Now, let's have a little break and let's go into, okay, but what starts to happen during my day? What starts to happening during my day? And like, what is the gig? Yeah. So if you guys have any question, about this. Miriam, you didn't understand the charge thing, okay? You see, when you are asking for something, you are asking it from a need. So you are asking it from a kind of a charge. You understand the charge? All your desires have charges, okay? So it's kind of like that charge is going with the circuit. The clear, transparent, open, available, this point is, meaning the less demand, it has less charge, meaning that it's going to connect deeper into your source. More charge, less deeper. Less charge, deeper. Okay. Now, this is going to go on to a progression. So I want to mention something before. I recommend you guys, because when you start making this conscious decision, the night that you decide making that conscious decision, be aware of the date. Be aware of the date. Write it down. For those people who are maybe new in this, write that date down. Even if you don't understand it now, just like if it's a birthday, it's like you're conceiving a new birth of yourself. So write it down to know, because if I don't write, why, when a baby is born, we write down the date? Why do we do that? Because we want to know the reference of when that baby was born in order to calculate its progression. So I know that it's been 2 years since it was born, so it's okay, so it's 2 years old. Meaning 2 years old means it's been through more sequences. It's lived through more chapters. So this decision is like giving birth to a possibility of yourself. So write that date down, and it will maybe come important. Because from that date, you can calculate how many days have gone through, gone past, etc., etc. That is what, and it has a process of, you see that there are processes of growth? No, Laura's asking a good question. If we've been doing it so far, but some nights I forget, should I start again? No. This is like, once you've made that first, I call it the first derivation is like the Immaculate Conception, okay? It's like the Immaculate Conception. It's like that first conception. And that is, it's like something that is, it can't be stopped. It's like you've activated a seed. You see, when you activate a seed, there's no like going back. It's like that seed is already opened. Once you've opened that possibility, there's no going back. It's like, okay, it's beginning a growth process. Now, the rest of the nights, it's like watering that seed. Okay, it's like it's like protecting. It's like nurturing that activation. So really, I sometimes say you really only do one conscious derivation, which is that activation of the seed. That and it's done in respect with the source, which is a no thing. If you have been derivating, but you've been derivating to an entity, like some entity, that doesn't count. That is a different seed that you activated. When you decide to start opening the conversation with the absolute source, the level of absolute source within you, which is a no thing, a nothing, okay? So if you've been asking God, and God is a figure for you, that is not source. That is not no thing, because that is a thing. So that doesn't count. Yeah. So a lot of people have been telling me, I've been doing the 9 derivations since, because I've been asking the Virgin Mary. No, 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 no. That is not you. That is you've activated a different seed there. No, no, no. You have to start. You have to, if you want to go into you're activating a different seed. Now, in your case, Laura, which I know a bit about your process, you have definitely started this. So that it just means that the night you forget, it's just kind of you forgot to give water to the plant, to the seed. It's no other thing. And the thing is that you can't kill that seed. For good or bad, you can't. There's no way of killing that seed. It's like once that decision is open, it's like, I'm not sure, when you become aware that Father Christmas doesn't, it's like, it's not your parents. It's like there's no turning back. It's like it's not. You can't kind of fool yourself anymore. You can go deeper into that understanding. And so we have that first derivation, which is the activation of the seed, and then the rest of the derivation is you keep watering and nurturing and putting compost and putting, giving it sun, you taking care of that decision that you made. Until if you find a decision that transcends in coherency that first one, which I can't find any decision yet, then you start a new derivation with a different what for, you see? So hopefully that answered your question, yeah, Laura? But it is an important question. Excellent. Okay, I think we are in the moment, a good moment for a break, yeah? So let me pause the recording and we come back. Okay, back to the recording. This is the second part of the module 2. And just a question here that I received is Susan and Gabi kind of saying that they can't remember that first date of the first derivation of the conception, of the activation of the seed. Well, something similar happened to me. So this is what I did. And I did remember more or less when it was. I remember the month. I remember it was September 2013. And what I did was just kind of have an intuition, because I remember that it was like, I knew it was September, but it was like very, very much in between September and the previous month. So I just kind of intuitively chose a date, which maybe it was wrong, but I intuitively chose a date, and I said, okay, so I set that date. So I set that date, even if it wasn't that, I set that date as the one that I configure in the program. And then what I did, on top, because you can have levels of derivation if you want. The first one is the first one. It's like that conception of the seed, but you can have different kind of like levels if you want to have a second date, a third date, which you think for some reason it's significant for you to take into consideration, because you think that the what for is more matured, like it has reached a different scale. It's still connected to the first one, but it has reached a second scale on it. So then you can do another one on top of it, and this time more consciously you write down the date, and you know which dates you're going to be using. Okay, so I have, for example, 3 dates. The first one is the most important one, which I can't really remember precisely the date, but I put the 1st of September. And then I saw that was synchronized, because that date, the number started to be, I started to see the coherency in the numbers, okay? Then I started a second one. I just felt that there had to be a more, kind of like, a second one in 2015. In my case, I just kind of felt that I would like to start a second level on top of it, and it just came to me a day, and well, there was a lot of different synchronicities that made me see that day was a different level of my process. And then the third one, which the following year, which I felt a jump of maturity in the process. So I have those three, but I always take the first one as the essential one where it kind of started. So have an idea of the reference, the time reference, as precise as you can, and on that time reference, you kind of intuitively choose the date. So, okay, this is the kind of, the y-axis, the negative configuration. Now let's go with the daily derivation. So, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to rub it. This, you got it on your, as a photo on the WhatsApp group. Now let's go with the daily derivation. And also we call Y the timeless axis because it is connected with this, which has no time. 7 is the timeless essence or source or whatever you want. But now this has already been done during the night. It's already been configured. So it's like the programmer has done his part. He can rest. And now the user has to come into play, the experiencer. So this downloaded thing is going to open, and the movie of that day, let's just take it as a day. It's going to have a past and a maximum future, okay, which is the end of the day, the beginning of the day, okay. But you're going to go through each chapter in the present. The first thing I recommend when waking up is the following. And it's just opening up, like saying, I open up to the future potential of that day. The future potential of that day, which I can't see, I can't see yet, okay? So we're gonna just, for now, use this graph, and to say, that what's below this line, let's call it unconscious, okay? And what's on top of this line is conscious, okay? So the first thing you're doing is you're opening to the future of that day, the purpose of that day, which is already being you're already opening to the end of the movie, which has the vision of the whole movie, okay? But of course, that opening, so you open, another way, you're opening to that intuition to come in, okay? This opening is bringing that future and bringing it consciously into the present. The decision is conscious, not the future vision. Yeah? So this is an open. You open. Yeah. So probably that'll be a good way to start the day. It's kind of like you wake up. At the beginning, probably you need some time, to see who you are, what planet you are, and all that. And then just kind of like this, I open to the potential or the purpose of this day, which for me right now is unconscious. It's a future that is unconscious for me, okay? When you open to the future, okay, you mean you're opening to a new version. You're opening to the update. Meaning, the first thing that is going to occur, and normally what's going to occur, is the part of your past that is obsolete or hidden, or what words could we put? Not resolved, and it has to be resolved. Because why does it have to be resolved? Because in order for this new version to come in through, certain things have to be dealt with, okay? And I'll give an example of this now, but what this is going to do is going to pressure here and lift up the past from the unconscious to the conscious. This process here, we could call it many words, but sometimes I call it, it's a whitening or making transparent, or seeing the limitation, seeing your position. And how is this going to be experienced? You're going, things that you have been or have been pushed into the unconscious of the past is going to come up, okay? Things that are out of date, things that, and for something that is out of date, in order for us to realize that it's out of date, we have to be able to see it, okay? So this lifting up of the past, this past becoming conscious, it always comes with a charge, okay? It comes with a charge, it comes with a challenge. I'm just kind of giving you keywords. It comes with maybe pain, difficulty, something that is not comfortable a lot of times. It's where the hidden has to become seen. Certain, not everything, but certain things, okay? And I don't really know, whitening I call it, or is that in Spanish it's blanquear. Blanquear, that's which has been hidden or which has been, or to just see what's out of date. I also put recognize your position, seeing where you are from the past to the present, like where you are in the existence. And let me put an example why this happens, okay? So just imagine there's a future possibility that is coming to you in intuition, and you start a feeling. And let's say it's the feeling of becoming a parent, okay? The feeling of becoming a parent. So you have this, like this pull or this push to become a father or a mother, okay? Well, in order for that to be possible, there may be things of the past that have to be revised, okay? Now, I'm not going to explain too much of this in this module, but the unconscious has what I call the structure and levels, different levels of unconscious, but let's just put it in one big thing called the unconscious, okay? And just imagine that in the past, you have been sexually abused, okay? And you have that in your unconscious. You've been sexually abused, meaning, and the consequence is you have difficulties in the, like at the moment of having sexual relationships because of that trauma, yeah? But you haven't really dealt with that trauma, you've been ignoring it, hiding it. But now you want to become a parent. And if you want to become a parent, you're going to have to deal with the need of having sexual relationships, meaning you have to deal with unsolved trauma. If you want to open that new possibility, you're going to have to deal with that stuck past. You see what I mean? Not all the traumas of your past, maybe, but definitely you have to deal with that one. Because if you don't deal with that one, how are you going to go into a relationship? You know, how are you going to make this future possibility activated? Okay. Again, this is just an example for you to understand, but the future is telling the future possibility what it does when you invite it. It lets us see what aspect of the past we have to update, or we have to clear, or we have to cleanse in a way, okay? I don't like to go too much into the cleaning aspects of it because there's nothing really essentially wrong with that. The thing is that it's not useful anymore in a way. So trauma, actually, it's the most useful response that we could have up to a certain point. After, we have to deal with it, because if not, that's when we desynchronize. Because the future is asking for a new version, meaning that past has to be dealt with, has to be seen, but we don't want to see it. So it's being postponed. That future is being postponed, meaning the more we postpone it, the more desynchronized we come with that potential. And the more it is going to erupt violently here. Okay? So far, so good? So the first thing is I open to the future possibility that this day is bringing me, or you can even go to the year, whatever you want is bringing me, but meaning what you're saying is I want this one to come up to my present, meaning I want it to challenge my past. Because the opening to the future is equal, it's challenging the past. So we could also call this the challenge. I'm just putting names to kind of give you the feel of that moment. So this is the past suddenly is lift up. And that which has been hidden, not dealt with, not looked at, or obsolete, something which is just obsolete, it comes up. Okay, and we see it, and we kind of realize, okay, so for taking the example, for me to be a parent, I'm going to have to deal, I'm going to have to deal with this. Now, sometimes what we have to deal with comes before we know what the future potential is going to bring. Like first we deal with the issue, and then we realize, now I know why I dealt with that issue in order to activate this possibility. You see? That challenge is going to create an opposition, which I call antithesis. Like a challenge, like something which is not comfortable, something which is like, okay, but now we are we are living that challenge. We're during the day going through that challenge. And the question is, how do I go through that challenge? Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's going through it as much as possible in 0 points, meaning allowing that challenge or that thing that is coming up, allow it to go through it consciously, as conscious as you can, to just live it. Basically, it's just to live that challenge, just to go through that challenge. Okay, just to experience consciously that challenge. I'll put a couple of analogies which will probably help you to get to understand this, because this process of growth, we can see it in anything. Okay, we can see it in anything. So here you're opening, but this opening has a bit of a difference to this one that we did here in the ninth derivation, because we are opening to the experience here. We're not just opening to the reconfiguration of the negative. We're opening to the experience of dismantling the limits of my past to be able to introduce a new possibility. Yeah? Is this kind of, are we doing good? I'm going to also explain, I'm going to use another graph to fully explain this, yeah? Because what does time want to do? What does time want to do? It wants to evolve. This aspect, what it wants to do is evolve. Evolve in what? Evolve in levels of coherency. Meaning, it wants to be able to introduce more purpose into existence. Okay? So to be able to open into more purpose and more potential, more levels of consciousness, we have to go beyond the fixation of the past. Okay? The more reference we have with the past, the more the past is defining what I know, what I don't know, who I am in the present, the harder, the more intense this challenge is going to be. Okay? What tends to happen is that people don't open to the future. Okay? Meaning they don't open consciously. So they actually, what they try to do is protect the past. Okay? They just want to conserve the past. This is the conserve the tradition, conserve who I am, conserve what I think the world's about, conserve my belief system, conserve my etc. So it's a conservation attitude. What we're doing here is not that. We're doing a revolution, but not in the political understanding. We're doing a conscious revolution here. Okay, like in consciousness, not in other ways, you know, like a kind of militant revolution. No. But the only way of doing revolution means innovation. That's the true understanding of revolution. The paradox is that a lot of countries that use the word revolution are countries that are not innovating, which is a weird thing, which is a paradox, isn't it? So revolution means innovation. Innovation means to open to the disorder of my past. Okay? So the order that my past was giving me, I disorder it. So the challenge is a moment, when you go through a challenge, it's a moment of disorder, of uncertainty. Uncertainty, because uncertainty is the future's kicking in and it's undoing the certainties that I thought I had about life and etc. Okay? When we go through this consciously, the challenge, the more conscious, this is going to redefine the configuration, redefine the unconscious configuration of our past. Yeah. So it's going to like redefine it because we've challenged it in a way, okay? Because that future's come through. Where is the future going to challenge us? Where is the future going to appear in our context? Somebody or some issue out there is going to push your buttons and bring up the fixed or the out-of-date past. It's going to bring it up. And it's going to bring a challenge. You go through that challenge consciously, meaning in the present, presently, with attention in 0 point. This is the positive zero I'm talking about. Yeah? And that's going to redefine the order of the past, okay? And what's going to happen after that is this future that you open to is going to begin to become conscious. It's going to manifest. You're going to become aware of that future, yeah? Of that future, meaning future potential, new purpose, okay? Of course, this can happen in many days, okay? And like we are just seeing this in a fractal of a day. But maybe this future, in order to manifest, maybe we need a lot of days of challenge, and then days of redefinition, and then days of manifestation, of new, that is like the eureka moment, okay? The manifestation of the new purpose is like something that it gives you this wider view and understanding of the world and of your life and what to do of your life, okay? So this is what's going to happen during the day. The beginning of the day, what I recommend is an opening to because first you did a derivation to open to a negative configuration. When you wake up, you're watching the movie. The play button's already been pressed. You already pressed the play button. What you're doing is to consciously connect with the purpose of that movie, meaning your day, okay, or that chapter. This is a series, a Netflix series, with chapters, seasons. We could say each year is a season, okay? And each day is a chapter of that season. So it's got 365 chapters. And that opening is going to bring a challenge. And now the good thing, if the challenge comes to you and you already are kind of open to the challenge. Okay, so the first thing that tends to happen when the challenge comes, you have a resistance. Yeah. The more you resist, the kind of like you are opting more for conservation more than innovation. Okay. Meaning you're opting more for the protection of the past than for the manifestation of the future. Okay? Remember that it's not like the future is better than the past, but if we are in a path of growth, we definitely need the future to bring in the new versions, and we have to allow those new versions to come in with the challenge that brings to our past. Because the challenge is to the idea I have of myself, of what I think I know. Okay, that's the challenge. Once you go consciously through that challenge, it's going to redefine the order of the unconscious aspects of your past. Yeah, because your past is not fixed. Okay, the past is not something fixed. The more consciously you go through the challenges, the more it kind of reconfigures the path in the lineal aspect. Okay, and then it's going to manifest. You're going to be able to manifest that future, that new potential, but in the living experience of it. Yeah. All this came through first the download you did non-linearly at night. That's why I always say, attend the non-lineal and then attend the lineal. Yeah. And one thing I'd like to say is each time you're like I open to the future comes to the present, okay? Each time you kind of doing this, you are reconnecting again with this. So during the day, we are also doing non-linear derivations at each moment. You go through a challenge, you derivate it. You redefine the thing, it's like the lineal is always in dialogue with the non-linear. During the day, what happens is that the emphasis and the intensity is more placed on the movie, but it is at the same time having a dialogue with this, okay? The thing is that at night, it's more intense, the non-linear negative configuration. Now, this is also something important. The more conscious we live our day, the more strength our night derivation has. So this is not something like I do the night derivation, but then I don't have the responsibility to be involved in what's happening with me. Yeah. So if I have an attitude where the first challenge that comes, and I'm like, I don't want this, I don't like this, I don't. Okay, so you're not like opening consciously to that challenge. Okay, that's going to bring a strength, yeah, to the night derivation. So kind of like the more responsibility you bring into your day means conscious living, ability to respond, conscious living. The deeper the availability comes, the openness comes. So you see there is this availability here and this responsibility here. Okay, and responsibility is kind of moral, you know, have to be responsible with this. No, it's this responsibility as in the living, in the experience, of your day, you are consciously aware. You are attentive. You are attentive to what's happening. You are paying attention. You are looking it in 0 point. You as aware as you can, as attentive as you can. Okay. So let me put an analogy, which is a pretty good analogy. Then I'm going to explain this with another drawing. And then at the end, I want to do a little exercise, because during the day, what's going to help you a lot to live responsibly or attentively or whatever you want to call it, is how matured you have your positive zero. Okay. What is the positive zero? The positive zero is the awareness of what's happening in the manifested expression. How aware you can be. Okay. The negative zero is how available can you be to the unseen. You see the difference between, it's the same zero, but it's connecting with two areas. One is connecting with the availability with the negative, with the non-seen, and one is connecting with the responsibility or the implication, involvement of being attentive with the positive. And there you have a zero that is connecting. Alejandra used to talk about the two zeros, the zero that opens, well, the zero that, sometimes I say the zero that unfolds in the negative, and the zero that unfolds in the positive. Okay. So in the positive, the 0 point is, it's quite, if you haven't matured, you have located, consciously located this area in yourself, the zero within your experience. And that is very, 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 very useful. It's simple, it's the most simplest thing in the world, but it's the most useful thing in the world. And once that is there, you don't need, you see, I'm not going to go too much into like techniques and things like that, because you guys have to kind of, that's the how. I'm trying to give you explanation of what to be aware of. The how to go through that, your own life has to tell you how, because it's very different to each person. You see, it's like, I can tell you what music is and what a rock and roll song is, but how to compose that song, it's like you have to find it in a way, the how. The best I can do is try to give a simple discovery in yourself of the location of your positive 0 point. Okay? Because 0 is what's connecting all this together and what's connecting all this together. You see? The negative 0 and the positive 0. Yeah? The 0 that connects you with the timeless and the 0 that connects you with the time. With the lineal and the non-lineal. Okay? Now I would like to see this with an example. For example, anything that has to grow has to follow the sequence. Okay? This is kind of like a structure of evolution in a way. It's like the mechanism of evolution. So let's put the following thing. Let's put the following idea. I want to grow, I want to be fit. I want to grow in being fitter, or like stronger or fitter or whatever. Okay, so, but first I have to recognize that the possibility of being stronger is in me, but in the future. It's not here present, because I'm just imagine I'm, I don't do exercise or whatever. I'm kind of weakish, okay? But to open to becoming fitter, I have to know that that is in my future. Okay, so first I open to that possibility in the future. Now, this is not magic, this is logic, meaning just opening to that future doesn't mean that you're manifesting it, okay? The people who want to manifest something just by opening to it, it's magic. They want magic. It's more like the secret kind of way of seeing, okay, the secret gets something right. You have to open to it first. Okay, if you don't open to that possibility, okay. So what possibility are we opening to here? What future are we opening to? The one that we derivated here. Okay, so if that future is the best future for the expansion of consciousness of me and the earth and the solar system, that's what I call the multiple levels of reference, which again, we're not going to go into, okay? Because we are connected to many levels of reference, okay? Yeah. So, okay, and they're all connected. Like, I want to be the best father for my son, but that is also connected of being the best elements for the earth, but they are levels, they are scales of reference. Yeah? Okay, go back to the example. Okay, I want to be fitter, so you open to that future. Now, that's going to bring you to a situation where you're going to see that, okay, in order to become fitter, that I know that possibility is in my future, I have to challenge my past heritage, or what I have from the past, because the weakness comes from that past, I'm not being taken care of. So I have to challenge it, meaning I have to go to the gym, okay? So I have to go to the gym. In the gym, what's going to happen? What's the gym going to do? Okay, so you want to be fitter. Okay, well then I have to challenge, I have to lift up the state in where you are. So let's take a muscle. What we're doing in the gym is, my muscle has a level of strength that comes from my past, but when I'm taking the weight, which comes from the context, I'm challenging my muscle. And I'm saying, okay, I want to see where your limitation is. Like, I want to see what is the length of that past, up to what point is the length. So I take it up to exhaustion, okay? So I'm doing the exercise and I take it up to its limit. When I can't go beyond that limit, it's because that is the maximum possibility of fitness that my past can give me. But because I've challenged it and I took it to the limit, that muscle, then I leave the weight and I rest, This is the challenge, this is the resting. When I rest, it redefines my past muscle. It redefines the reach of that past muscle. And then what happens is that my body creates more muscular tissue and manifests a stronger muscle. And then, a month later, I say, God, I'm feeling stronger. Like I can lift up more weight, or I'm feeling fitter. I'm feeling, You see that? Did you guys see the sequence? Okay. So basically, that is what's going to happen during the day. Moments of challenge, moments of not challenge, of resting, because after first moment is, today I'm going to the gym. So you're opening to that future possibility. Yeah. Then you go to the gym, you go through the challenge, you do the burning. You see, what is the burning of the muscle? It is you are reaching the limits of your past. you are telling your past to express itself. So the burning, that pain, the charge is like, it's actually the future telling you the new, up to where you can reach. So the challenge is the uncomfortable one. Then after, you have to let the weight down, and you just have to allow your body to do what it does. So it has to do an unconscious process. So there you relax. And like when you go to the gym, they say it is as important to know how to consciously be attentive when doing the exercise as allowing your body to do the rest. Like the person who is pushing themselves all the time, over challenging themselves, it's not the best way of doing exercise. Actually, you are more than expanding, you're coming closer to a breakdown. Okay? You're pushing too much. You are not allowing the necessary rest for your muscles to reconfigure themselves into a new version of strength. Okay? So there's a moment you have to open to that possibility. There's a moment you have to go through the painful, uncomfortable challenge. There's a moment you have to know how to relax. And there's a moment you have to, when you relax, you become open and you have to manifest that new muscle. Manifest means you have to realize that you've got that new strength in you. You've integrated it, And the only way you realize is when you have to do strength again. And then you realize, wow, my muscle's growing, okay? Good. So is this kind of understood? These moments during the day, and all of them have to be done in the present moment in 0 point. So what is going to be the connector of all these different moments during the day is the 0 point. The 0 point meaning that aspect in your conscious living that is aware, is attentive. The word to define the positive 0 point is you are aware of that. So you are aware of the new possibility of strength. You are aware of the pain. Like the people in the gym, the people who do very well, they convert pain into something they consciously live. So instead of something that they resist, it's something that they learn how to invite. Then there are people that get addicted to pain. That's a whole different story. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about knowing how to consciously live pain. I sometimes call it making pain just a sensation. So pain, the problem when it's pain, you're not listening to it. You are suffering. You're like, oh, this is horrible. I wanted to. But when when pain becomes a sensation, you sense it. You listen to it. And it's quite remarkable the difference it creates in your experience. Like when you go taking the gym again, is when you're like, oh, I want this to end. I want this to end. It's like the experience of it. It's a whole different game. And how it's going to redefine the manifestation also changes. But if you are just you're in that intensity of that pain, whatever, and you're just like listening to it. You're just like, okay, and you're listening, I could do a bit more. And then you listen, that's it. I've reached that's it. Now I have to rest. And then the 0 point of being aware of the restness. So once you've let the weight down, you're just aware of that process of reconfiguration. You're just like, that is just like Alejandra used to call it hacer la plancha, which how would I say it in English? Hacer la plancha is just to relax, just to let it be at that point, And it's wonderful. It's like just you're resting in a pool of, you know, of allowness, okay? And then when the manifest comes, you also are aware, you're conscious of that new strength you have in your muscle, the new, and it's always going to come with a feel of expansion, this part, yeah. This comes with a feel of intensity, of charge, conflict. This comes with a feeling of letting go. This comes with a feeling of expansion, okay? And this comes of this feeling of invitation. So, if there's no kind of questions with this at the moment, what I'm going to do now is explain this which happens during the day with a different graph, okay? And with that, we'll be closing the kind of, and doing that little activity at the end, yeah? To close this activity is to allow you find that conscious zero as pure as you can within your awareness, your experience awareness, yeah? So let's just have, because I want to change the image, let's just have a very short 5-minute break. Maybe today, I think, yeah, most surely today, the explanation will extend, okay? So whoever wants to continue can continue, and whoever has to leave, they can leave. But I don't think, I think I'm gonna need a bit more time to finish today. So let's just have a 5-minute break and continue with the last part, okay? This hasn't been recording. I've just realized this hasn't been recording. I think this part hasn't been recording. Oh. I just realized now, because it started in the recording. Somebody put their hands up? Susan, yeah. Put the, wait, I have to.
Okay,
Yeah?
can you hear me? Yeah. None of that's recorded. None of
The
it.
second? I'm not sure now. Oh no, but I think, oh, I'm not sure. Now I'm confused.
You stopped a second time for 5 minutes. Did you put it on again after that?
Yeah, I'm not sure now.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I think that antithesis, synthesis, and all that. Oops.
Oh dear.
I'll see now if there's any way that, you know, because I think it, no, I think it, that second part of the explanation wasn't recorded.
It's stating recording.
No,
It
now
says-
it's saying recording.
Ah.
Because I just realized now when I paused. Okay, welcome back everyone. Now, for those who haven't been seeing this live, and they're gonna see this after in the recording, there's been a part which I have just explained, but it hasn't been recorded. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna do this exercise now, okay? And after, I'm going to do a summary of that part. The part that hasn't been explained is the graph which has the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, integration. So what I'm going to do is like a little synthetic explanation of it, okay? For you guys to have it. Probably most of you have heard about that explanation before, so maybe you already have an idea. And now what I wanted to look into is what I'm going to call the recognition of the positive zero, meaning the 0 point in your awareness while you are experiencing life. Okay. Why? Because this zero is the motor of evolution. It is like that center of the spiral, which allows that spiral to kind of continue growing. Yeah? And it's the connection between the negative and the positive, the timeless and the time. Yeah. So this is something not to create in yourselves, but to recognize in yourselves, because it's already there. So it's not like creating any state, because what we're trying to recognize in ourselves is something in our awareness that is stateless. It hasn't got a state. It is aware of all the states, so it's stateless. But it is something that you're going to recognize during the day in your conscious experience. Yeah. So it's very, very simple. And I'm just going to kind of give you the clues. And what I want, while I give you these clues, while I give you these kind of instructions, if you want, you just kind of be aware of that in your experience, okay? So what this 0 point is something in your awareness that is always present. That's the first thing, because if you see in the graph, it is connected in the present moment. It means it's always there. Maybe what happens is that you are not consciously aware of it, but it's always there in the background, okay? So it is something that is always there. And it is something that is able to become aware of anything that you are experiencing. But it's none of those things. It's not a state. Okay? So let's go with something very, very simple. And is that notice that you are aware of the external world. Okay? And for this, notice that you are aware of objects. Okay? You're aware of objects. So that is something that is conscious. It's consciousness that's aware. Okay? So you are aware that there are objects. You are aware that there's colors. The objects have different colors, so you're aware of that. Okay. You are aware that there are sounds, different sounds coming in the background. So pay attention to those sounds. Just become aware of those sounds. Okay. So you are aware of that. Something is aware. Now my question is, that which is aware of the object, okay, isn't the object, is it? Okay, so it's aware of the object. It's aware of something. Yeah? That which is aware of the sounds isn't a sound. Okay? So you're aware of the sound, but that which is aware of the sound isn't a sound. You're aware of the objects, but that which is aware of the object isn't an object. Okay? Now become aware of something a bit more intangible, which is, it's not an object, it's not a sound, it's not a color, it's not a smell. It is the empty space between objects. Okay, but that it's outside of you, this. So if you look around your room and you just kind of, if you can look at the sky also, you just kind of, you're aware of empty space. Okay? That is containing all the objects. So now we're going to go from what's out, we're going to begin to go what's in. And probably you notice that when you're paying attention to sounds, you're aware of sounds, it creates a different feeling inside than when you are aware of empty space. Like if you're listening to a song, that creates a feeling in you, the song. And depending on what song you're listening to, it's creating inside a different feeling. Yeah? But when you're aware of the empty space, it also creates a different sensation in you. Probably when you're aware of empty space, it creates like a space inside. So just take a second to be aware of what I'm trying to say here is that what's outside is connected to the experience you're having inside. And what you are paying attention outside is establishing a living experience inside. So to give following the exercise, just notice sounds. Notice sounds. Now notice, become aware of what those sounds are creating inside you. There's a connection. Like that sound is irritating, or that sound is nice. Can you see that? There's a connection. Yeah, Miriam? I thought you were going. Okay, so there's this connection. Now I want to go inside. Now, notice that you can become aware of how you feel inside. Can you become aware? Like now you have to be more attentive because it's a bit more, it's a bit more subtle. So probably you notice, for example, I'm noticing that there is a bit of tiredness because of the explanation. I can notice the sensations inside. A bit kind of like a bit worried because it didn't record before. Yeah. So I'm aware of sensations. Now, that which is aware of sensations, is it a sensation? You see where I'm going? Okay. So we have a 0 point in plane 2, your inner sensations. 0 point in plane 1, something that is aware of the body and something which is aware of the context. I'm aware of the tree, I'm aware of the colors, I'm aware of the... Now, when we go inside, in the inner dimensions, something is aware of the sensations. Now, this is where we have the sensations and we have the awareness of the sensations. That which is aware of the sensation, is it a sensation? No. Okay. So the 0 point is not a sensation. Important. It's the awareness of sensations. This is very important because a lot of people think that 0 point is like this equilibrium of sensations. No, it's the awareness of meaning. You can be very, very, with a lot of charge in your emotional sensations. 0 point is not calming the chargedness. It is becoming aware of the chargedness. Okay. So 0 point is something that is not controlling the experience. It's aware of the experience. Can you guys, now what I hope you guys are doing is You are aware of what you're feeling, what you're sensing. Okay, you are aware of it. Okay. Now, so there's no need to control what you're feeling. There's a need to just open up. Now, when you let's see if you notice this happening. As soon as you become consciously aware of the sensation, something begins to occur. That sensation begins to balance itself. It's just a natural mechanism. So, for example, I'm aware of my tiredness, yeah? When I'm aware of the tiredness, what I notice is I give the tiredness space to express itself. That's one thing that 0 point noise does. When it recognizes something, it includes it. It gives it space to express itself. So I allow the tiredness to be. What I also notice is that that tiredness begins to balance. If I stay long enough, the tiredness is going to balance up to the point there's no tiredness. Why does this happen? It's a natural thing that occurs with when you put conscious awareness onto something. It balances. It's just what it does. But you're not controlling your experience. It's just something that it's an effect. So if you are angry, the same thing occurs. It's like the anger is expressed, but what it begins to happen, it begins to balance. It just naturally happens. Happiness, the same thing. If you're very, very, very chemically happy, you're aware of it, it just balances. Meaning that what 0 point does with your experience, what it tends to do, it balances the charge. Positive or negative, it just balances the charge. It's just what it does. Now, let's go into another area of your experience, which is your, notice that you have thoughts or you have perceptions. Okay, perceptions are different than sensations because perceptions are an idea or an interpretation of that sensation. Okay, for example, I have the sensation of that kind of being a bit upset that part didn't record. But then I have the perception of the idea that, okay, that was something that, it shouldn't have happened, or the next time it's not going to happen. So I have a perception, an interpretation from that sensation. In this is plane 3, okay? We're going into plane 3. Plane 3 is anything that perceptions can include. For example, you can, now if you want to, you can close your eyes and imagine a plate of spaghetti bolognese, okay? Just imagine it. Now, that image that is appearing, it's appearing in plane 3. Okay, are you aware of that visualization? Are you aware of it? Yeah, so you're aware of it. Now, if you are aware of your perception, the question is, this 0 point, is it a perception? Is it an idea? Is it an image? No. Because it's aware of the perceptions. It's aware, okay. So the nature that seems to emerge from 0 point is the capacity of being aware of more and more stuff in your experience. Okay? So I'm aware of the perception, I'm aware of the sensation, I'm aware of my body, I'm aware of my body in relationship with the world, and how the world, external stimuli is in dialogue with the internal experience. Okay? But something is aware of all that. That which is aware isn't any of those things. You got it? Now, probably this is a bit more subtle, and I'm not going to go beyond this, but can you become aware that the perception you have comes from a design? Like, the perception you have comes from, if you weren't a human, if you didn't have a human design, you probably wouldn't have that way of perceiving spaghetti bolognese. And you wouldn't have that way of sensing the world. And you wouldn't have the body you have. So you can notice that your experience is connected to a design. Your experience is connected to an identity. And you're aware of it. Now, that awareness of the design, of the identity, is it an identity? That awareness. Is it a design? Is it a program? Or is it just empty consciousness? Okay. So that is 0.4. Okay. It is conscious awareness seeing that my thoughts, my sensations, and the body expression, that comes from a certain design. But that which is aware of that understanding isn't a design. Okay? So, if you guys have located this awareness, now I'm going to ask some questions about it. Okay? So now you are consciously aware. You're actually experiencing consciously this neutral, stateless consciousness. Stateless means that if you're happy or you're sad, this awareness is there, independent of your state, emotional state, independent of your mental state, independent of any of your states. You are always got this neutral, innocent, empty awareness, which is just aware. Okay. So now I'm going to ask some questions, and you just kind of follow with a nod or whatever. Yeah. Okay. This consciousness, this 0 point consciousness, where is it located? Like, is it located in your head, in your chest, in your feet? Is it located anywhere? Has it got a spatial location? Or is it aware of all the locations? It's aware of my head. It's aware of my chest. It's aware of my hands. It's aware of my foot. It's aware of my room. But where is it? In space. Where do we put it? Probably you're noticing that it doesn't really have a location. It has attention, means it can direct its attention to a location, okay? Meaning I can put the attention into my feet. And notice something. I can't see my feet right now, but I'm aware of them. So this awareness can orient attention, but in itself, it can orient attention to localizations, but in itself it has no localization. That's why it has attention. It has no tension. It can see where the tension is, but from where it's born, it has no tension. That's why it's attention. It has no tension. So you can recognize the tension in your foot, but this awareness is not that tension. It's aware of that tension. Okay, good. So it seems that it hasn't got a location. Okay, and another question on that is like, how far away is it from you? This awareness, is it like 2 centimeters away? Is it like far away? Is it close? Where is it? Okay, this is a trick question because it has no space, meaning it is closer than close. It's like there's no difference between you and this awareness. So it's like it's not even half a millimeter. It's that it is you. So it's something in you that you can't make an object. See? You can't experience it because it experiences everything. You are aware of it, but you can't so it's not an object, it's just a pure subject. And this consciousness is aware that it's in a young body, it's in an old body, it's in a medium age body. Okay? Now, but this awareness, the 0 point awareness, how old is it? Like, how many years has it got? And you notice that you can't really answer it because it's a confusing question because it's timeless. It's not something in time. It's not like it is something that just is. Okay, so you can't really say, okay, it's 5 years old. Now, my thoughts, I could say are, thoughts of an adult, not a child. But this is not a thought. This is not a state of consciousness. This is an awareness of, this is a stateless consciousness. Okay. Now, this awareness that's aware of the thoughts, the perceptions, the sensations, the world outside the body. This awareness. What is its favorite political party? Is it like left wing, right wing? What? It just doesn't have. That belongs to the identity configuration. Okay. Is it Christian? Is it Muslim? Okay, it's just awareness. It's a stateless awareness exploring your individual state of consciousness. Okay, so it's like it's timeless, spaceless, but it's aware of all the space I can conceive and all the time I can conceive. If I have a memory, it's aware of it, but it's not a memory. This consciousness is not a memory. It's just pure awareness, pure. And another question, what color is it? Is it green? Is it white? Is it purple? What color? Anybody see a color? Has it got a color? And if anybody sees a color, what is aware of the color? If you see pink, I see it's pink. Well, what is aware of that it's pink? And is that pink? That which is aware of the pink? Because what tends to happen, we confuse our 0 point consciousness with our mental projection. That's a typical mistake. It's a typical confusion we have. We say, we confuse the state of consciousness which we are experiencing with this 0 point awareness. Yeah? So no color, okay? And what image has it got? Like, what does it look like? Does it look like anything? Does it got a beard? Does it look like Jesus? Okay. If it looks like Jesus, what you're doing is you're projecting a mental image of Jesus, okay? But this consciousness is not, you see it has no image. It's aware of images. It has no image. Good. So what other question? So it has no image, has no color, but it sees all images and it sees all colors. It has no sound, but it hears, it's aware of the sounds. It isn't a sound, but it's aware of the sounds. It doesn't have a location, but it's aware of locations. Okay. So you see, now what you're probably connected to is the conscious realization of this area within your experience. This kind of like just this awareness of things. So now, if something hurts, if something's painful, and something comes into your state of consciousness which is painful, is this awareness in pain? Or is it aware of pain? Okay, you see, this is the thing. Now you have an area where to experience the pain without getting drowned into pain. Because you see, this 0 point is not in pain. It's not in pain, but it is conscious of the pain. So it gives you a balance in the unbalance. So whenever you're going in unbalance in your state of consciousness, this is your balance point in your experience during your day. And is this something that you're creating? Or is this just something that is there? Like, one thing about this point, can you stop having it? Can you stop being aware? You can maybe change your feelings, you can change your perceptions, you can imagine different things, but can you stop being conscious? Try do it. Try like just stop being conscious. Okay. You can't. Okay. Because the 0 is the first elements for there to be any experience. So you can't, and somebody I remember told me, I did it. I stopped being aware. And I asked them, and what was aware that you stopped being aware? You see? Is that you can go more and more subtle into this. And you can see that, you know, it's like you can go more into its natural quality, which is nothing. Like, it's just a conscious nothing. It's just a nothing which is aware, meaning no thing. It's not a thing. It's not an object. It's not a color. It's not a sound. It's not a content. It's not any content. But it is the essential ingredient for you to be able to have experience. How could you have an experience without this awareness? You couldn't. It's like the only possibility of drawing a picture is because you have a white piece of paper. So this is like the white piece of paper of your consciousness. Okay, that is a question I don't know how to answer. Like, when we die, we stop being aware. I don't know. Because I haven't died yet, you know. but my feeling is that it's not limited. This awareness is not limited to the body. I don't think it's like that. I'm not just, I've had actually an experience where the kind of, you know, like the state of consciousness just disappeared, but there was still an awareness. I could, like, there was nothing, but there was still awareness. I had this experience in a body, yes, but it definitely was nothing. There was no thoughts, there was no emotions, there was no nothing. There was just an awareness. So by the way, Game of Thrones is coming soon. That's going to be interesting to watch, the last season. Okay, so can you guys kind of, if you couldn't connect with this stateless awareness, this conscious 0 point, okay, which is also a good point to go to bed, because it's like that 0 which connects the negative with the positive. Because in this exercise, the 0 is only been looking at positive stuff, you know, like an emotion, an object, all positive stuff. But you have to understand that that is connected to the non-manifested area also. Okay? And that's what you just, from that neutral, open consciousness, you just fall into that. You just kind of open into that negative also. Okay, you connect from there. So, with this, we kind of wrap up the second module. And I'll be giving you the pictures. I'll be making what I've done today into pictures, and I'll be sending those for you to have. And what I would recommend to be doing, you know, until the next module is just connecting with this conscious 0 together with the ninth derivation and together with the recognition of the steps of the daily derivation, like the challenge moment, or you know, and you see, this is the thing of 0 point. When the challenge comes, this 0 point is not in a challenge. It is aware of the challenge. When you open to the future potential, it's not that future potential, but it's open to it. So the redefinition of your past, it's not part of that, but it's aware of that process occurring. Okay. So this is going to give you a stability. The 0 point gives you a stability in this unstable spiral of evolution, because it's unstable. Growth is very unstable. It has to be unstable. But you have this area of stability, but you have to find it in an area of yourself that is not in time. It's not like in time or determined by time or by space. It's just this conscious 0 point. Huh? So you guys can rest. I can't. I have to do the talk, a short talk about this wheel of evolution. So I guess you can watch this after, and once you watch it and once you have the images, well, any questions you have or any whatever it is, we have the group of WhatsApp, and I know that you guys are kind of meeting with, I think Jeff has kind of organized meetings, which I think is an excellent idea for you to meet and to have this dialogue and this feedback about, you know, and probably this second module is a bit more, you know, like experiential. So the feedback is going to be more about the experience you're having with all this. Yeah. So enjoy your rest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. What I'm going to ask you guys to do this time is
Bye-bye.
to leave. I'm going to stay because I'm going to
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to myself for a bit. Okay.
Have fun. Thank you.
I'll have
Bye.
fun. I'll have fun. Bye, guys. Thanks a lot
Bye.
for everything. Huh?
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Would you like to
Enjoy.
have it? David,
Sorry, Mariam?
I took some notes. Would you like to have it?
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. I'll just explain it again.
Okay.
However it comes. I will do a synthetic version, yeah, of it. But for the people who aren't recording, who aren't following this live, what I'm going to explain now is that moment that was lost in the recording. Okay. So probably you want to do the exercise after this explanation.
Okay.
And you guys, thanks a lot. And you can listen to the explanation of the exercise again and kind of do it again. That'll be also good, okay?
Okay.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
pause the recording.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Okay, well, this is the part that wasn't recorded. So I'm just going to give a small explanation of it, which is connected, all this is connected to the daily process, okay? The daily process, that process which I explained before with the stencil and explained with the open to the future, which is going to lift up the the things that are out of date in the past, and that's a challenge. And that's when we go through that challenge consciously, that's going to be redefined. It's going to redefine the past, and that's going to manifest that new potential into our awareness and reality. So what I have here is what I call it's a model that presents the structure of evolution, the structure of growth, the structure of this spiral of evolution. Okay, because a way of seeing evolution, a good image related to how the dynamics of evolution occurs, is this spiral. The spiral is always going to the kind of like the same point, but always expanding itself, always increasing its reach. And in the time aspect, what we are doing is we are expanding the consciousness and the reality. We are expanding, we are evolving life, we could say. We are evolving life. So what we have here is just different points in the process of that evolution, in that growth. If you notice, we have in the middle a 0 point. And this 0 point, remember, is this connector between the timeless y-axis and this the non-manifested negative configuration, which we are ordering and downloading during night. And then we have the positive 0, okay, which is opening into the unfolding experience, which has been downloading in the negative into the positive, okay? And this 0 is kind of like the center that is creating the spin of this spiral of evolution, yeah. And 0 is kind of like that, the wheel, that the center of the wheel is not moving, but it's allowing the whole thing to move. So it's the 0 that's allowing the spiral to kind of move, okay? And the first part is the thesis. What is the thesis? The thesis is the state of consciousness, or the state of reality, in which we already are settled into, okay? And I'm going to be using this parallelism, this analogy with the bodybuilding that I explained before, yeah? So it's like the state of my strength, the state of the strength of my muscles I have at the moment, okay? That is the state of my consciousness, the state of my physical strength, okay? Now the thing is that for this to evolve, for this to expand, we require a challenge. We require a challenge. A challenge is that antithesis. And that challenge tends to present itself outside of ourselves. Okay? The same way that weight is outside of myself, and it's that which is allowing me to challenge the state of my muscles. So something outside is allowing me to have like a tool to challenge something which I have within, okay? The state of my muscles. What this antithesis is going to create is the symptoms of the moment of the antithesis is like something which is a bit uncomfortable, something which has charge, something which brings a kind of like conflict, something which creates a disorder, because the order we have and that we know and that we are kind of comfortable with is the one that the thesis we have, the state that we already settled into. So what the antithesis is going to do is kind of break that order. So we are going to feel disoriented, like in a bit of emotional challenge, mental challenge, etc. What actually that's happening? It's really what's happening is the future is challenging the state we have in order to express itself. You know, the new version to be able to. The new version. What would be the new version? The new muscle. But for that new muscle to appear, I have to challenge the state of the muscle I have now. So that new muscle is just a future possibility. Okay. What we tend to do when this challenge comes, and it challenges the comfort of our states of consciousness, what we tend to do is this movement here, which is a resistance. This resistance is like, I pick up the weight, I begin to do the exercise, but I don't like it, so I resist that pain that is creating. So I throw the weight, and what happens is I go back to that thesis. So I instead of opening up to the challenge, I close down the challenge. I resist it. Okay? I resist that challenge. The thing is that this is going to not allow me to grow, because each time I try to pick up a weight, and whenever it starts to burn, I let it go. I'm never going to be able to grow the reach and potential of that muscle. It's always going to stay in the same comfortable thesis. So it's not going to follow the law of time, which is to evolve, to grow, to. So the only way that we can move in this direction with the spiral and move with this movement, with this dynamic of growth, is to open to the challenge, consciously open to the challenge. The way that we can open and consciously open to the challenge is through the zero. The zero is experiencing that confusion from a point which is not confused, 0 point. So it's experiencing that confusion, it's experiencing that disorder, it's experiencing that pain, it's experiencing that challenge, that charge, but it's not letting go. It's not resisting. It's not running away. It is allowing that to. It's consciously going through that challenge. Okay, it's consciously going through that challenge, and that moves this antithesis towards this direction of a synthesis. A synthesis is a new thesis. It's a new. It's a new state of awareness. Okay. Once we've gone through the challenge up to the point where we can reach, because you see the challenge has a point of possibility of going through the challenge, but there's a reach that we can't go beyond. That's where we notice we go through that pain, but there's a moment that the muscle just can't go through more. It reaches a point of exhaustion. And in that point of exhaustion, that's where we have to know when to let go of the weight. And after we let go of the challenge, because we've consciously explored it, we've consciously walked through the challenge, that's where we do this kind of like we rest into the redefinition of that past, of that state that we already acquired. Okay, so what we're doing is we're allowing the muscle to rest. The muscle which has been challenged, we allow it to rest. The state of consciousness that's been challenged, we allow it to rest. Then we rest into a kind of like just kind of relaxing and allowing it to be. What that's allowing is that muscle, so we don't want to be challenging the muscle after, because that's going to break the muscle, you see. We are allowing a time of rest for that muscle to reconfigure this disorder, because actually what happens is that the muscle breaks, literally, and it recreates a new order, a new muscle, a new order. So that means, in consciousness terms, it's a new state of consciousness. A new muscle is a new state of consciousness. What are the symptoms of this? Symptoms is it's a new order. It's like a new order which brings new perceptions, new ideas, new sensations, new kind of like something new into your consciousness. Okay. Now, this movement, when the antithesis does a resistance and it goes back to order, but it goes back to an old order. Okay. When it does that process, what happens is that instead of growing, it begins to go into a process of degradation. It starts to lose its life force. Okay. So people who are stuck into this, not opening to the challenge, they begin to kind of, degrade their state of consciousness. This has a different effect. It's like a new order which brings this vitality into it, this, you know. Well, with that, we are still in synthesis, means we're still in an area of new states of consciousness, new perception, new ideas, but we haven't brought it into reality yet. We haven't brought it into our lives. We haven't brought it into the manifested. We just have it in our states of consciousness. Now we have to bring it into existence, you know? Share it outside, kind of thing. Now, from the synthesis to the integration, what occurs is, because one thing is to have the state of consciousness and one thing is to manifest it into existence. In that process, from one thing to another, we're going to go through this process called trial and error. And that's what's going to refine from state of consciousness to manifestation into reality, into existence. Okay, and that's going to go through a very slow process, a very kind of slow process where you're going to find errors. Yeah, because one thing is to have the state of consciousness of perceiving of how we can fly, and one thing is to create a plane. You see the difference? So the synthesis is when you become aware that we can fly, we can create something like that, and one thing is to actually create and manifest into existence that state of consciousness. Okay? That's going to take time. That's going to take time and trial and error, which is going to do a process of refinement. Refinement until there reaches a moment where with the errors of making models of planes that broke down many times, there's going to be a moment where you actually manifest a plane that works. Okay, so you integrate it, and once we reach the integration of that integration becomes a thesis. You see, the integration of the state of consciousness, which occurs only when we manifest that into experience, into reality, that becomes our new level of thesis. So what is in one point a new potential then becomes an old potential, you see? Now, check out this thesis. It is built upon this other thesis here. So it's in a different level of the spiral, which has transcended this thesis, but at the same time includes it. See, and it includes it. So this one still is their emergence, allowing this new thesis to appear. Okay, but this new thesis, this integrated state of consciousness, this new integrated state of consciousness, it also wants to continue this process of growth and of transcending, and of evolving. So what it's going to need, again, what's it going to need? An antithesis, a new antithesis, a different challenge. It's going to bring a different challenge. So this is what's going to kind of happen. And a new antithesis is going to be born, which wasn't there before. A challenge that wasn't there before, and it's a new challenge. Why? Because a new challenge means a new possibility of future. A new challenge means a new possibility of a state of consciousness. Yeah? And this is how this kind of spiral of evolution, this is the kind of model, this is a model to explain how it normally works, how it kind of, what's the sequence that it normally goes through, yeah? And this is something we're going to be living during our day. These are moments that we're going to be living during our day. The moments of antithesis, the moments of synthesis, the moments of integration, the moments of renovation. Yeah? When we go from integration to thesis and open, this is a renovation, a conscious opening to a renovation. Yeah? And this is going to be going into a spiral of growth in our states of consciousness. But remember that what sets the reach and the purpose of this spiral is occurring in the negative area. It's occurring in that y-axis, in the timeless, in the connector with that ninth derivation. Okay, so the ninth derivation is setting the extent. It's like setting how the purpose, the extension of the purpose, and this is evolving that purpose. Yeah, it's like making that purpose grow. Yeah, so if your purpose is just becoming a very good chef, and that's where you are, you can evolve that. You become a better and better chef, better chef. But also what life is wanting to do is to not only improve and evolve a certain purpose, but to expand your purpose. Expand, not only to become a good chef, but to become what? A vehicle for consciousness. Whatever you feel is that's why the ninth derivation is you're setting the extension and the limits of the reason why you're alive. And so if the reason why you're alive is to become a very good chef, you can only evolve in that purpose. Yeah? So the ninth is renewing the extension of that purpose. Yeah? So this is basically what was explained during that cut that we didn't record. So probably the good idea would be to watch this and then do the exercise, or whatever you feel. Whatever you feel is kind of like the right, kind of what feels right to do. But this was the explanation I wanted to give. And what would be interesting for you guys to do with that 0 point discovery during your day, together with the ninth derivation, is to locate those moments of antithesis and to become conscious and to literally say, this is a moment of antithesis. I can sense it. I can perceive it. The 0 is aware that this is a challenge. This is burning. this is uncomfortable, this is a disorder, you know. And then all moments of synthesis, I can see that I'm aware that this is a new state of consciousness, this is a new way of perceiving my life, perceiving the world. And then those moments that, okay, but now I'm pushing it into existence. I'm in that manifestation kind of movement, yeah. And you realize that you are in that era trial. You know, you're doing it. You're taking it from your state of consciousness into existence, but you can see that there's the margin of error. That margin of error is refining it, and that becomes integrated. And that makes you jump to a different level on that expansion of the spiral. Yeah? So at night, you're reformulating the download of the files in the negative based on from what points are you making the decision, like what is the purpose, what for, why. And that is going to bring you a download where you're going to open that and experience it. And that experience is probably going to follow this sequence. Okay. So, module 2 completed. Next time, I have to remember, and you guys have to remind me to press the record button, not to lose track. But thanks a lot for you guys. Thanks for this module. And we'll, you know, give some time to digest this, watch this. If you're listening to me, you're watching it. So, and I'll be giving you the drawings of these. For now, I sent the pictures onto the course, the WhatsApp group, and the kind of exercise I recommend is to do that 0 point activity, that, you know, that awareness of that 0 point, that conscious 0 point, that experiential 0 points, and then this kind of locating these processes that are going during your day. Okay, and the 9th derivation. If you're beginning it, write down the date, and you start counting those days. And thanks a lot for everything. Now, my time to rest. So, bye-bye. Take care.